I guess that's
Thank
what.
you all for joining me this morning. Today we'll be talking about the evolution of car computer technology. My name is Austin Hayes. From the beginning of the cars to the 1960s, engines were manufactured with simple and mechanical control parts. Emissions were not as relevant as efficiency gave way to horsepower. As the 1970s began, federal mandates regarding a car's emissions were beginning to appear, and the fuel crisis of 1973 to 1974 showed that many larger and more powerful motors were not important as economy was. Most cars of this time period were fueled by carburetors, and very few ran with mechanical fuel injection, so the need for onboard computers evolved slowly. The actual physical requirements for an onboard computer had not miniaturized to the point where it could fit into the car just yet. By the mid-1970s, it would take another decade before a microchip would be small enough and practical enough to fit inside the car. As gas shortages continued in the 1970s, car manufacturers began to implement small, solid-state circuit control boards to control the ignition timing and spark, usually mounted into the engine compartment at the firewall. Several manufacturers experimented with computer-controlled carburetors into the early 1980s, using a crude microchip to measure the rate of fuel mixture and advancement of timing, but these proved unreliable and difficult to repair. The future of computer-controlled ignition resided in fuel injection, not carburetors. Through the middle of the 1980s, almost all car makers pushed for an industry-wide changeover to integrated circuit-controlled fuel injection. The now complex carburetor gave way to fuel injection mainly because of the ability of the computer to precisely measure the amount of fuel into the engine. Carburetors had a number of disadvantages such as vapor lock, altitude mixture problems, things that a computer could easily solve with adjustments to the fuel injection system. As the microchip evolved, it became smaller and more powerful, and advancements in shielding could protect it from heat and moisture. As car computers started being implemented into a car, a standardized port called Onboard Diagnostics, or OBD, I'm sure almost everyone's heard of those. This system used several sensors placed throughout the engine to relay problems to the technician, making repairs easier for the technicians. As the 1980s gave way to the 1990s, onboard computers were designed with more responsibilities. Not only required to process the fuel mixture and timing, they now could be relied upon to control most of the electrical processes of the car, including climate controls, braking systems, and the odometer. The computer became the brain of the machine, upgradable and customizable, giving the mechanic incredible control over the powertrain's abilities. Using a laptop computer to interface with the OBD port, the programming of the car's microchip became second nature to racers. The engine's performance could be tweaked while the car was in use, and relevant data could be relayed to the driver in real time. As the OBD system standard was improved upon, the OBD2 board system was the next generation of auto computers. Powerful and durable, this system eliminated the need to sniff tailpipes during emissions tests and allowed sensors to relay the effectiveness of emissions control systems. Now let's look at how the ECU works.
Before the days of programmable engine management, we had carburetors and distributors. The carburetor was there to add a metered amount of air and fuel into the engine, while the distributor was there to do exactly that, distribute the spark to the right spark plug. An engine management system, or ECU, is a computer. It's got a bunch of inputs that come into the ECU from the engine, and then it's got a bunch of outputs that go out to injectors and ignition that's on the engine. The inputs that come into the ECU, we can choose a wide range of stuff to measure for data logging and a whole bunch of advanced tuning stuff, but the sensors we actually need for the engine to run are air temperature, coolant temperature, throttle position, manifold pressure, and engine speed. With these 5 signals coming into the engine management system, it'll know how fast the engine is turning, the demand or the load on the engine from the throttle position and the manifold pressure, as well as the temperature of the coolant and the air. So with these things, we know enough about the engine and the engine's operating conditions in order to look at a lookup table of fuel and ignition, which is set by the tuner. Once we've looked at our fuel and our ignition tables, we know how much fuel and how much ignition timing the tuner wanted the engine to have. The last part of the engine management system is to send those signals out to the fuel injectors and the ignition system. We send a signal out to the fuel injectors, we tell them how much to open and close to allow a certain amount of fuel through or metered amount of fuel through into the engine to get our desired or our target air to fuel ratio, or our AFR. We send an ignition output signal out to our ignition coils to fire that coil so that our spark occurs at the right time in order to make the most power. So now that we know the engine management system has inputs from the engine, so we know how fast it's going and what temperatures and what load it's under, we know that it's got outputs that go to control the fuel injectors in the ignition system. You heard me before say lookup tables. A lookup table is a 3D table that's in the engine management system. This is what the tuner is doing when they're tuning the car. They're adjusting this lookup table, which is normally based on engine RPM, so we can have as many load points as we want, normally 16 to 32 load points across our RPM operating range. Then on the other axis of our 3D table, we'll have throttle position or manifold pressure, something that references the load that the engine is under. So if we look at, let's say, 50% throttle position and 4,000 RPM, these 2 points intersect, and there'll be a number there for our ignition timing. We might want to be firing the ignition timing at 20, 30, 35 degrees of ignition timing. And we will have a volumetric efficiency, or how efficient the engine is at that point in time, which allows us to put the right amount of fuel into the engine at the same time. There's a huge number of these lookup tables in the engine management system, which give it instructions to operate against a wide range of operating conditions from our critical input sensors. Haltech supplies base maps, which are a huge range of these lookup tables that are already pre-configured for a lot of different styles of engines and racing types. So we can start an engine on one of these base maps, but then it's up to the tuner to tune all of these tables in order to make the most out of your particular engine, in your particular application, in your particular area. Keep in mind that while we've talked about your ECU doing your engine management, it's called an engine management system because it's also got a wide range of inputs and outputs. For inputs, things like monitoring fuel pressure, oil pressure, exhaust gas temperatures, air-fuel ratios to be able to add critical engine safety stuff. Then, on the outputs, we can add extra outputs to control things like thermofans, shift lights, tachos, variable cam control. All of these sort of things are extras around your engine management system, which allow us to do all of the engine control in one simple box. I really hope this basic explanation of what an engine management system is has helped you to understand a bit more about what your tuner does and what Haltech.
Alright, so to sum up the video, the ECU is the brain of the motor, and it works off of many sensors and components to control many different variables of the engine. In the beginning of the 21st century, we began to rely on computers to do much more than just monitor and control the engine. With navigation systems, advanced climate controls, communications, and entertainment devices, the onboard computer has become the most important part of the car's electrical system. Most automobiles have more computing power than a desktop computer from the early 2000s. And now, the picture on the left is a early 1990s European model car. This is when navigations first came out. And the picture on the right is a brand new Mercedes S-Class And you can tell the difference between 20 years of how far we came. And the picture on the right, the Mercedes has features dual 12.3-inch monitors. The left one houses the gauge cluster, and the other one monitors is for navigation and manages all the features in the car. A few of the features in that car is heated and cooled seats, heated and cooled cup holders, and massaging seats, if that doesn't tell you how far we came with technology. And that's just a few. There's many more other technologies in that car. So technologies came a long way from just using computers to control the engine timing and other simple tasks. Today's cars are far more complicated than the cars from the past, containing anywhere from 60 to 100 sensors and projected to contain over 200 sensors by 2020. Cars are getting to the point to where there are too many wires and it is taking up too much space, so engineers added more computers to the car instead. Because there are already numerous computers in the vehicle, adding a few more is no big deal. Now, for example, instead of running a heavy wire that carries electrical power from the power window switch directly to the motor that raises the window, a whole new way of controlling the window motor has been developed. Rather than carrying the voltage from the switch to the motor, the switch is now connected with a thin low voltage wire to a body control computer. This computer senses the activation of the switch and sends a signal to the window motor telling it to open or close. The window motor all have their own power source wires and are just waiting for a signal to come down the multiplex line from the computer. And many of these systems have sensors that tell the computer not only when the window's all the way up or all the way down, but whether there's anything impeding its progress. The NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, plans to require every car to have backup cameras by the year 2018. This is a very useful technology, especially to elder people or people who are handicapped, maybe have back or neck problems and can't really turn around to see the rear. And technology is becoming so advanced that some cars have multiple cameras around the car and can give you an overview of what's going on. I think that's pretty cool. So not only can you just see out the back, but you can see a 360 angle around the car as if you're hovering over it. Now, the age-old statement, one day cars will be able to drive themselves, is here today. With Tesla being the leader in self-driving cars, other companies are catching on. Here's a video giving a brief overview of how self-driving cars work. This is a very brief video, because that technology is very complex.
This is Tesla's Model S, and we're going to have a look at how autopilot actually works. We'll do the hardware first while we're outside. Underneath the plastic front bumper cover here is a radar that can look forward a range of several hundred meters so the car can tell what's in front of it. That data is combined with information from these little dots. There are 12 of them around the entire circumference of the car. They're ultrasonic sensors, so a much shorter range, but more of them. Up here at the top of the windscreen is a camera that's forward-facing, and there's also very high precision GPS, so the car's computer knows exactly where it is all the time. While we're still in park, we can actually activate autopilot, or the parts of it. We go into settings here. It's this controller at the top, auto steer, brackets beta. I'm going to press on, just one of those ones you tend to gloss over. Tesla really wants us to read this now. It's saying, I will keep my hands on the wheel. Do I want to enable auto steer while it is in beta? I'm going to say yes. And that's it, that's on. Lane change is on. We're ready to start our trip. We're on the freeway here in Nevada, so this is the type of situation where autopilot should work. And so first, I'm going to pull this lever towards me once. That activates adaptive cruise control, something that a lot of cars have these days. I have it set at 70. The truck in front of us is only doing 62 miles per hour right now, so the car won't go any faster than that. But if I manually change lanes, and we go around the truck, take my foot back off the accelerator, the car is now doing 70, and it will hold 70 unless there's something in front that the radar senses that means that we have to slow down. The second part of autopilot is the auto steer. Now that I have to pull the lever twice to activate. There we go, and it comes up with a little sign there saying, please keep your hands on the wheel, but I can just keep one hand on that because I can see in the display here that I have two lines highlighted in blue. That means the car is seeing both lane markings on either side. If we were closer to that vehicle in front that's up there, then that would also be in blue, saying that the car recognizes that it's there, and it's kind of locked onto it as a leading signal. We can just cruise along like this. I am supposed to keep hands on the wheel, but you can see how relaxing it does feel. It lulls you into this sense of security. Another fun function of autopilot, I'm right now in the left-hand lane, I should be in the right-hand lane. I'm just going to activate the signal, and then I'm actually going to take my hand off the wheel here altogether just to show you. The car just moved across into the other lane. Oh, there's even an exit there, which it has managed not to send us down, and it's now sent us back into the right-hand lane. Not entirely sure how useful that function is. It's nice that it checks your blind spots for you, and that will perhaps get better over time with software. Right now, I personally keep a very tight eye on the car whenever it's changing lanes, just to make sure it's doing it the way that I want it to. This is a great time to be using autopilot. We're in a line of very slow-moving traffic here, although we're on a highway that's got a speed limit of 65, which the camera has captured and is showing me in front here. Now you can see the speed is going up and down. I actually don't have my feet on the pedals right now. I will keep one hand on the steering wheel because that's what we're supposed to do. But the car is just speeding up and slowing down as the car in front does. In fact, the car in front is braking. I'm not touching the pedals with my feet. I just have one hand on the wheel. The car is going to slow down as that car slows down. We would come to a complete stop and then start moving again. So in stop and go traffic, it really takes some of the pressure off the driver. One thing that it's not liking here, if you can see outside of the driver's window here, we're in the left-hand lane and there's a concrete rail that runs very, very close to the side of the lane. And autopilot is displaying these yellow markings in front of me, warning that there's something there, something in my blind spot that's kind of triggering it the whole time. If we were going any faster than the 20 miles an hour or so we're crawling along at, I'd probably be driving manually just because I would feel more comfortable with that. And one little Easter egg Tesla engineers have left us. You click 6 times on this lever, you get the Rainbow Road from Mario Kart and a little burst of more cowbells from SNL, apparently favorites of Elon Musk.
I like the little Mario Kart Rainbow Road.
It's one of the texting and driving a lot easier.
Yeah. Alright. As you can tell from the video, self-driving car technology is not an easy task. Many radars and programs work together to simulate where the road is going, the obstacles on the road, and how to maneuver around these obstacles. Google has been working on this self-driving car since 2009. They launched one of their prototypes cars in 2015 to drive across the country, and it completed this trip with no errors. Now, by a show of hands, who would trust this technology right now, as today, how it is? Only one person?
I might take a try at it.
You might.
I could probably get a good lawsuit.
You wouldn't take a nap on the way to school?
Give me a little bit more sleeping time.
You don't think you trust it that much? Alright. So heads-up display technology has came a long way from the dim, washed-out green digits some cars projected on the windshields 20 years ago. But as good as heads-up displays are in 2015, by 2020 we'll see active glass capable of displaying vibrant images. Imagine a navigation system that actually highlights the next turn of where you're supposed to turn. And so, as seen from your perspective through the windshield as you approach it. The switch we've seen in recent years from keys to keyless entries will be followed by a switch to key fobless entry. You'll be able to unlock and start your car without anything more than your fingerprint, or maybe your eyeball, but fingerprint readers are more likely than retina scanners. Sound like a lot from the latest form of cell phone security? It should, because that's exactly the same concept. And the government is seriously looking into researching and developing a technology to where cars can communicate with each other on the road. Imagine approaching an intersection as another car runs the red light. You didn't see them at first, but your car gets a signal from the other car that it's directed in your path and warns you of the potential collision, or even hits the brakes and automatically avoids the accident. A developing technology called vehicle-to-vehicle communication, or V2V, is being tested by automotive manufacturers like Ford as a way to help reduce the amount of accidents on the road. This would be a very useful technology, except for I think it would have a lot of bugs and could end up causing wrecks.
That would have to be a real fast indication.
Yeah, it would have.
Like it'd have to drift you out the way because it ain't gonna stop just because even no matter how fast you're going, the tires and all that sliding, if it's raining, it make it worse.
It'll probably end up drifting into the wall or something.
Yeah, that'd be better.
But you never know. Maybe good at drifting and be able to drift you back on the road. You never know.
Those heads up displays, man, they be making you dizzy.
Oh yeah. I don't know how I feel about the heads-up display.
I don't like
Especially in the future, whenever they get so vibrant that it'll pretty much just be a TV on the windshield instead of you actually seeing the road.
Or if you got like a text message that come up and your lady right beside you.
Yeah, it'll pop up on the screen.
Yeah.
No hiding from that. Anyways, that concludes my presentation, and thank you for all your time.
You ought to run for class president.
I'm thinking about it.